Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. I never used to believe in ghosts. Or, at the very least, I didn't think they could hurt you. That changed last year. It was supposed to be a simple 3-day hike. Just me, my gear, and the stillness of the Cascade Mountains. I had done plenty of solo trips before. Nothing fancy, just a way to unplug, reset my mind. I liked the quiet, the solitude, but this time it didn't feel right. The first day went as planned. Hiked about 10 miles in, found a decent spot near a stream, pitched my tent. I sat by the fire, ate my freeze-dried meal, and fell asleep to the sounds of the wind moving through the trees. But the second day, that's when things got wrong. By late afternoon, a thick fog rolled in. I don't mean the usual mist you get in the mountains. I mean a wall of soupy, dense, unnatural fog. It swallowed the trees, muffled the sounds of the forest, and turned everything into a gray void. I could barely see 10 feet in front of me. I had just started collecting firewood when I saw him. A man, standing at the edge of my vision. Tall, unmoving, dressed in old, tattered hiking gear. His face was obscured by the fog, just a shadow in the mist. I froze. "Hey," I called out. "You okay?" No response. No movement. I felt something cold slither down my spine. Something wrong about him. "Hey man, you lost?" I tried again, but nothing. He just stood there. I backed away slowly, forcing myself to turn around and head to my tent. My gut told me not to look back, but my brain wasn't so smart. I glanced over my shoulder. He was gone. The fog was still thick, but he wasn't there anymore. No sound of footsteps, no rustling branches. Just gone. That night, the fog didn't lift. It pressed in around my campsite like a living thing. I could feel it crawling into my tent, into my lungs. The silence was heavy. At some point, I must have fallen asleep. But around 2 a.m., I woke up to footsteps. Slow, deliberate, circling my tent. Not the sound of an animal, not the skittering of a raccoon, or the cautious approach of a deer. These were human footsteps. I held my breath, my fingers wrapping around the knife I kept by my sleeping bag. The steps were slow, crunching against the forest floor, one after another. And then they stopped, right outside my tent. I could hear my own heartbeat. I gripped my knife tighter, barely breathing. Then I heard it. The zipper on my tent began to slide down. I don't remember deciding to do it. My body just moved. I lashed out with the knife, slicing through the air in front of me. But there was nothing there. No resistance. No scream. Just the thick, choking fog pouring in through the half-open zipper. I scrambled out of the tent, my flashlight cutting through the mist. Nothing. No footprints. No broken twigs. No sign that anyone had been there at all. But I knew what I had heard. I barely slept the rest of the night. Every sound made my skin crawl. Every shift of the fog felt like it was watching me. At first light, I packed up and got the hell out of there. I didn't stop hiking until I was back at the ranger station, my legs burning, my lungs aching. One of the rangers, an older guy with weathered skin and tired eyes, looked at me as I stumbled in. "Everything okay?" he asked. I hesitated. I didn't want to sound crazy, but something in his expression told me he'd heard worse. I told him everything: the fog, the man, the footsteps, the tent zipper. I expected him to laugh, to tell me I was imagining things. Instead, his face darkened. "You're not the first," he said. His voice was low, careful. "People see him." I swallowed. "Oh, a lost hiker," the ranger said. "Years ago. Got caught in a whiteout and never made it out. They found his tent, but not him. Some say he's still looking for shelter." He let that sit between us for a moment, then added, almost as an afterthought, "But if he opens your tent, you don't come back." I haven't hiked alone since. Story 2. I've never told this story out loud. Not because I don't want to, but because saying it makes it real again. Brings it back, like speaking the name of something you're trying to forget. But I'll tell it now, just this once, and then I'm done. It happened about 6 years ago. My best friend Mike and I have been hiking together since we were teenagers, and we thought we knew the woods well enough. We were wrong. That summer, we took on a stretch of the Appalachian Trail. Thick forest, winding paths, places where the trees pressed so close together they swallowed the sunlight before it could reach the forest floor. We'd been out for 3 days, no cell service, no people, just us, our gear, and the quiet. The thing about the deep woods is how still they get. People think of forests as noisy, birds, bugs, rustling leaves. And yeah, sometimes they are. But out there, that far from civilization, the silence gets so heavy it feels like it's pressing against you, like it's waiting. The second night, I woke up needing to pee. The tent was stifling, thick with the scent of sweat and nylon, and I wanted nothing more than to step outside, breathe the crisp mountain air. I unzipped the tent, shoved my boots on, and stepped into the night. It was darker than I expected. No moon, no wind. The trees stood like black pillars against the sky. I was about to walk a few steps away when I heard something. Not just something. I heard me. "Mike, come here." It came from the trees. Not far. 50, maybe 60 feet out. I froze. My throat clenched so tight I couldn't breathe. Mike shifted in his sleeping bag. "Dude," he whispered, his voice groggy. "What?" I turned to look at him, my pulse hammering in my ears. "That wasn't me," I whispered. Mike sat up fast, his sleeping bag rustling. He was wide awake now, his eyes sharp. "What the hell do you mean, that wasn't you?" I didn't answer. My skin prickled with the kind of fear that sits in your bones, the kind that makes you feel hunted. Then, before either of us could move, we heard it again. Closer. "Mike, come here." Same tone, same inflection, my voice, but I wasn't speaking. Mike reached for his flashlight, fumbling with the button. He clicked it on, the beam cutting through the dark, but there was nothing there. Just trees. That was when we heard a new voice. Mike's. "Come here." It came from the other side of the clearing now. A perfect, exact copy of the way he speaks. Casual, easygoing, but hollow, wrong, like an actor playing a role, but missing something essential. Mike's face went pale. He looked at me, his breath coming fast. "Dude, what the?" "Show." I held up a hand. The woods had gone completely silent. The air felt heavier, thick with something unseen. And then the voices started moving. They circled the tent, calling out. First mine, then Mike's, over and over. Sometimes soft, sometimes stretched out like a recording played too slow. Mike, come here, come here, come here. The worst part, the voices weren't coming from any one place. They moved, fast, 1 second behind us, the next to the left, then far ahead, deeper in the woods. And then, right behind the tent, the nylon bulged inward just slightly. And then, in a whisper so close we felt the breath of it. Let me in, Mike swore under his breath. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in. I couldn't move, couldn't blink. The tent was zipped up. There was nothing inside with us, but something was right outside, close enough to touch. The fabric shifted just a little. We sat in silence, gripping our knives, waiting. Then the giggling started, high-pitched, breathy, like a child's laugh. But wrong, wrong. It wasn't just one voice anymore. It was dozens, overlapping, echoing each other. We lost it. Mike unzipped the tent in one frantic motion, and we bolted. We ran with just the light of his flashlight, our packs forgotten, the ground uneven beneath our feet. Branches whipped at my face. My heart slammed against my ribs. The voices followed, calling out, "Come here, Mike, come here, let me in." And always, always that awful, breathless giggling. We ran until the trees thinned, until we saw a distant glow through the branches. A ranger's outpost, barely more than a shack with a porch light. We stumbled inside, gasping, slamming the door behind us. The ranger on duty looked up, startled. "What the hell happened to you two?" We must have looked crazy, scratched up, drenched in sweat. We tried to explain, but how do you explain something like that? We stayed there until morning, neither of us sleeping. When the sun rose, we hiked back to our campsite with the ranger. Our tent was still there, our packs, everything just as we left it, except Mike's boots were missing, and in their place, sitting neatly at the entrance of the tent, were two bare footprints. Not ours. We left everything behind and never looked back. And we never, ever spoke about it again. Story 3. I work as a trail guide in Montana. I take people into the mountains, help them set up camp, teach them how to read the land. Been doing it for years. Seen all kinds of folks. Nature lovers, thrill seekers, city dwellers trying to prove they can handle the wild. But nothing I've seen out here has ever unnerved me like what happened 2 summers ago. That season had been a busy one. A lot of bookings, a lot of tired legs and mosquito bites. I was used to the routine. Take them in, show them the beauty, bring them out safe. But Aaron and Lisa, their trip still lingers in my mind like a bad dream. They were young, mid-30s maybe. Fit, experienced hikers. The kind of people who came prepared, who knew the difference between a black bear and a grizzly, who packed smart and didn't waste my time asking if there was Wi-Fi in the mountains. 3 days in the backcountry, a simple loop with some of the most beautiful ridge views in the state. The first day was easy, uneventful. They were pleasant company, and I liked them well enough. We reached the river campsite just before sundown, set up our tents, cooked dinner, and sat around the fire talking about nothing important. By midnight, we turned in. At 3 a.m., Lisa shook me awake. Her face was pale in the moonlight. Aaron's gone. I sat up fast. Gone where? She She shook her head. I don't know. I woke up and he wasn't in the tent. I pulled on my boots, grabbed my flashlight, and stepped out. The night was cold, the kind of deep mountain cold that clings to your skin. The fire had burned low. The river was a steady hush in the background. I expected to see Aaron relieving himself somewhere near camp, but he wasn't. I checked inside their tent. His boots were still there. His jacket. His pack. He walked off barefoot. That didn't make sense. No experienced hiker wanders off without their boots. Not in the middle of the night. Not this far from civilization. I turned to Lisa. Did he say anything before he left? She shook her head. I didn't hear him get up at all. That sent a ripple of unease through my gut. I've been a guide long enough to know the warning signs of a bad situation. A lost hiker, an animal attack, even disorientation from altitude sickness. I'd seen it all. But this? A man walking off barefoot into the woods without a sound? That was something else. I swept my flashlight across the tree line. Nothing. No movement, no sign of him. But the longer I stared into the trees, the more I had the feeling that something was staring back. Then Lisa gasped. I turned, and that's when I saw him. Aaron was standing just beyond the trees, maybe 30 feet away, motionless, barefoot, his face blank. I lifted my flashlight. Aaron, he didn't move. Lisa rushed forward, but I caught her arm. Something was wrong. I don't know how to explain it. It wasn't just that he was standing there in the dark like some kind of sleepwalker. It was the stillness of him. The way he stood too straight, too rigid, his arms hanging at his sides like he didn't know what to do with them. Aaron, I called again. My voice sounded too loud in the hush of the trees. You okay? His head twitched, just the smallest motion like a glitch in a film reel. Then, without a word, he turned and walked deeper into the forest. Not ran, not stumbled, just walked, deliberate, silent. Lisa tried to run after him, but I held her back. Something's not right, I whispered. She fought me, screaming his name, but he didn't stop, didn't even look back. And then, he was gone, just swallowed up by the dark. We searched until dawn. I shouted until my throat was raw, my flashlight beam cutting through the trees, catching nothing but the fog rolling in off the river. No footprints, no broken branches. It was like he had never been there at all. At sunrise, we hiked down to the ranger station and reported him missing. Search and rescue came in full force. Dogs, helicopters, volunteers combing every inch of the area. They searched for a week. No body, no footprints, nothing. Aaron was just gone. Lisa was a wreck. She stayed in town for a while, waiting, hoping, but after a few weeks, she left. The story should have ended there. A sad mystery. Another name added to the list of people who vanish into the wild without a trace. But it didn't, because 2 months later, another hiker saw him. I heard it from one of the rangers. A solo hiker passing through the same area spotted a man standing in the woods, 30 feet from the trees, motionless, barefoot. When the hiker called out, the man turned and walked away. Just like before, they searched again. Nothing. I don't take people to that part of the mountains anymore. I don't camp near that river. And I don't go hiking alone.